To our wider listening audience out there in the Cayman Islands, good afternoon to you all. Today is a very special day, Wednesday, the 25th of March. Firstly, I'd like to say happy birthday to our good friend, Miss Susan. And despite all of the negative things that are happening right now, there's much that we have to be grateful for. And without further ado, I'm going to ask Ms. Susan if we can go to our commercial break. And if you stay tuned, we'll be right back with Talk Today.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255. Courtesy of Flow,
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon, Cayman. This is Patrick Schmid standing in for Sterling Dwayne Banks. We are currently waiting for someone to join us from the Department of Agriculture on via link, as of course these special times require us to take special precautions using the technology that we have available at our fingertips, and of course also provides us with an opportunity to become more familiar with that technology that we have. So that is one silver lining, if there are any. Another thing that I'd like to take the opportunity to mention whilst I have the open line, so to speak, is just to remind people of a few important factors that has been mentioned over the last few days with the various visitors that we've had representing the various governmental and quasi-governmental authorities, including things like, for example, the HSA flu hotline, which of course is of paramount significance, it being toll-free 1-800-534-8600 or 947-3077. Please also be reminded that there are many other important lines that have been established for the use of the general public at this coronavirus time, so that you can best know how to get advice or deal with a particular issue, such as, for example, the HSA pharmacies are providing prescription refills when you are able to text them or WhatsApp them your prescription for refill, or even drop it off at the drop box in the atrium of the main hospital here in Georgetown, or indeed there are specific arrangements at the Faith Hospital in Kimmebrack as well. That having been said, of course, just by way of reminder, the call-in details for Talk Today are, of course, 949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255 toll-free and courtesy of Flow. And also you can send us WhatsApps if you have any questions, concerns, issues. I'll do my best certainly to answer them in the interim whilst our guest is not here. The WhatsApp number is 925-3261. As you know, I'm standing in for Sterling Dwayne Ebanks, and we are hopefully going to have a reasonably full slate today, and if we don't, well, we'll make our way nevertheless. I'd also like to take the opportunity on a personal note to on a personal note to say that in this particularly difficult time, I think it bears mentioning that we must remember our Christian heritage and our faith, and even the modern Cayman with its various faiths and religions should think about that which is at the core of our foundation in terms of what we believe in, and remember that we are all here for a purpose. And the coronavirus is yet another challenge in life that we will overcome. So we have to remember the bigger picture whenever we're dealing with the stresses and challenges of coronavirus. Do we have someone on the line, Susan? Sorry. Okay. Hello, you're on Talk Today. Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Mr. Schmid. How are
Good.
you?
I'm very good, sir. How are you?
Very excellent, man. And I just called in to two things. First, to say a special thanks to you,
Oh, no.
for sitting in that chair. I must share. You look so much more handsome, when I watch it on YouTube than when I see myself. So,
You know, they say flattery will get you anywhere, but it's only if you believe the flattery.
well,
But
no,
thank
man.
you. Thank you. I
Thank you.
appreciate the being able to sit in. I can't fill those shoes, but, doing my best.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, they are some big feet. But, but the second thing is to highlight how important it is for us to have all hands on deck. I mean, you're helping us by doing what you're doing so I can do other things. And if Miss Susan doesn't mind, just as another sort of indication of what we are as a people. Today everybody knows it's her birthday, so a special public happy birthday to her. But she's working, again, all hands on deck. And watching her political leadership, the Honorable Premier in particular, in the last couple of days, but yesterday specifically, sort of calling to the country, public and private sector, individual and the collective, to do more, do better in our own sort of endeavors to make sure the country remains safe, to recognize that this is not just a threat to our country, to the region, but globally, and not just to the financial sector, but to the human, to the
Absolutely. And indeed, sorry if I could just interject there, Sterling. With the announcement this morning or late last night that unfortunately Prince Charles has contracted the coronavirus. That just goes to show that this thing has no bias or prejudice. It is there for us all, and we have to be extremely careful. But yeah.
I think that would even sort of go even closer to what the Honorable Premier is sharing. It's for now, as to the headlines and one of the rag sheets that are being circulated in our country. I think it's unfortunate that as a media, and I say this all the time, I'm not a journalist. I hold journalism in the highest esteem. Those people who train as professional journalists, we see it globally. They go into war zones, they go into areas, sometimes press conferences facing politicians and business leaders that is akin to a den of thieves, and they're expected to come out and report objectively, whether we watch them on screen or we read, what they peck away at their typewriters or nowadays some fancy digitized gadget.
Right.
But it's to be objective, it's to be impartial, it's to be accurate and timely.
Yes.
And so it behooves us, not just because we have access to some device or the other, to be able to hit something that the headline should make it, on the line disparaging comment about the country in lockdown or about the people in anarchy or about the people panic buying, because we don't want to create any more fodder. But then again, it comes back to us as the collective, from that individual basis, forming part of that collective, to doing the thing. If we're queuing in line to wait to get into the shops, that we buy responsibly,
Right.
that we engage in a safe distance. But
It's also demonstrative too, Sterling, of again what the Honourable Premier and his colleagues have been saying. At this time in particular, where the enemy, so to speak, is not something that is visible that we can sort of aim at and shoot for, but it is not necessarily tangible, and it is so important that every single individual and every single company and every aspect of our society pull together. And so it's certainly good to see the efforts that are being reasonably made by, for example, the supermarkets in respect of those things which are being bought in bulk, and perhaps too much of it is being purchased by certain persons and so on, placing the necessary restrictions on the amount of articles per person, and various other important efforts like this. But it seems as if by and large, despite the the few negative detractors and some of the fake news that is illegally being circulated still, and I stress illegally. The thing is that by and large the country really is pulling together, and perhaps more so than other places, and it speaks to what kind of society we have.
It is, man, and I think too that we will talk about the fake news. We will talk about some of those platforms that may not necessarily see us as journalists or citizen journalists, but even the established, supposedly reputable, supposedly accepted broadsheets, they need to ensure that when they report that there isn't any bias, there isn't any undertone of some sort of disparaging comment that could be construed, and sometimes deliberately so,
yes,
to sort of make the country look less than what it is, right? For weeks now, I've been talking about the Cayman ethos of share and share alike. There was, and I pray that there still is, a semblance of a cooperative, loving, caring, compassionate spirit that permeates the society. But if we are not going to demonstrate a level of civility, as the Honorable Premier shared yesterday, do we want 10 days of this endeavor, or do we want 3 months? Do we want a curfew from this time of evening to this time of morning, or do we want it 24/7?
Right.
If it's the greed of the business store, the supermarket, the retail store, the restaurant, the corporate entity, whatever it is, right? If it's just the money short term at the expense of the life and the quality of life, then we have to really check ourselves, because we can point fingers. But I must, if you'd allow me to caution, let us not just renege on our own individual responsibility, but let's also be mindful that if our behavior can somehow be taken by a government to say, see, they can't behave, they can't follow the rules, so let's now come down with a heavy hand. Let's put boots on the streets, otherwise put guns in the hands of some people with uniform that patrol in, the next thing you know, you're into martial law. We don't need to get there. We don't desire that, right? And
right.
Recall, you ever seen a government impose a tax and rescind it later on? When power acquired, you think they'll be easily given up, because now you find that the people have become accustomed to being told. So let us retain control of our liberties by being mindful of our individual responsibility to respect law and order, to respect the nature. Okay, for now, if there is no place open that we need to go, why not we stay inside? If this thing, as you shared, is this invisible thing that can cause great havoc and lead to fatality, let us not have to be attending funerals of hundreds, if not thousands, of our own people. And worse, they pass away and we can't attend because potential risk of spread. Why don't we exercise a little bit of patience, civility, responsibility, and stay indoors, move about, only sensibly and responsibly. It's one thing to want to capitalize on the markets now to make sure that we maintain the financial sector, but it's another thing to have a ghost town and just, a rot within a society that goes beyond just what we see as the obvious day-to-day accepted norm that has become. Maybe this is a time to rekindle a sense of spirit and humanity.
Of course, I agree with you 100%, Sterling. And just to underscore the points, some of the core points that you made. I mean, as we both know, when a government has to institute new laws or invoke laws that would not normally be utilized, such as the curfew, in order to maintain control. Some of us might think it's a bit excessive. In fact, the majority of us might think so, because the majority of us are behaving ourselves, so to speak. But then, unfortunately, the way the legal system works is that the legislators are forced into a position that they must legislate for the lowest common denominator, so to speak. And so for the person who, or the persons who are least cooperative are causing the greatest amount of problem. So they're by far the minority and causing problems for the majority, which is a very unfortunate thing. And but I mean, I do understand the issue, of course, and you're quite right as well about the responsibility of the journalist not to be sensationalistic and so on, and to put country before everything else, especially at a time like this. But at the same time, inevitably, you hear the questions being asked at the press conferences and press briefings, pardon me, and you can almost understand. Or you can usually understand where it's coming from, insofar as they're trying to ascertain if the government has, an idea of, and of course they don't necessarily, no government does, of when this will all be brought to an end or when things will change and so on and so forth. And so I think what we as a country need to do, each one of us, is to remember just to take it one day at a time, because that's the best that we can actually do.
Yeah, man. And I think, I recognize your time and I appreciate you giving me a minute or two. But I'll leave us with this, perhaps. It is unfortunate, right, that sometimes maybe, as you say, the innocent suffers for the guilty.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Now, first point last, right, the notion of the press conferences, I would love very much to see, the public being able to ask, continue to ask the questions as has been, because that's excellent. The journalists are there, but they're not the be-all. Well, I can't really call them journalists, they're not the be-all and end-all.
Right.
What I see present at a press conferences leaves much to be desired. But in education, right, the last point I want to leave, in education, we sometimes would have seen in the classroom that one unruly child, causing the rest of the class to be interrupted. That disruptive behavior causes the other students to suffer. If, to your point earlier, if that is what happened and that small minority is misbehaving, then deal with them, sanction them. If the private sector don't want to play ball with respect to declaring all their staff and Sunday to be essential,
yes,
then deal with them, right? The movements of the rest of us shouldn't have to be, hindered, hampered, and our lives so, more, in a sense, upset in more than what it is now because of greed and because of the insensitivity of a handful of, otherwise mutts. Deal with them, man. But anyway, maybe the days are coming when we will see the Daniels rise again, my friend.
You're right about the enforcement, though. Enforcement is important. Enforcement, as opposed to all and sundry being forced to do the same. But Sterling, thank you so much for your call. I really appreciate it. I think we have another call on the line. But first, we're going to go to a commercial break, and immediately thereafter, we'll take the call. And then I believe we have also the presence of our one of our participants for today.
At Seaboard Marine, customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
I have various items coming from different suppliers that I need to ship to Cayman. Do you offer consolidation?
Yes. Seaboard Marine offers consolidation for full and less than container loads. We can hold your packages at our Miami warehouse until everything arrives and ship it all in one go. And we have the best rates to Grand Cayman. Visit seaboardmarine.com for more information.
Shipping shore to shore.
Bring a little bit of luck to your house with Lucky Slice from America. Burgers, steak, and the all-day American breakfast. From Europe, fish and chips, pizza and crepes. And from Asia, sushi.
Breakfast, lunch, or dinner, 7 days a week, delivery or pickup, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. In these difficult times, we can all use a little bit of luck. Keep calm and stay lucky.
Minimize contact. Make your credit card payment by phone. Pay only for food. No delivery fee. No service charge. Certain restrictions apply. Call Lucky Slice Pizza to place your delivery order now. 949-3456.
Order from Cayman Creperie, Mojo Sushi, and Lucky Slice Pizza. Call 949-3456.
Preventing dengue is as simple as preventing mosquito bites. Use a mosquito repellent, wear protective clothing, and stay indoors during early dawn and dusk when mosquitoes are most active. Control the places around you where mosquitoes breed. Remove stagnant water in outdoor and household settings. As a weekly habit, persons should change the water in vases, clear the water in saucers under potted plants, and ensure air conditioner drip trays are free of stagnant water. Outdoor objects capable of holding water should be kept empty and preferably disposed of or put into dry storage if not used. These include open bottles and tins, watering cans, buckets, empty paint tins, and old vehicle tires. Do your part to control the spread of dengue. The dengue virus is an infectious disease transmitted through mosquito bites. Symptoms may come on as early as 4 days or as late as 3 weeks following an infection. There is no vaccine or specific medication to treat dengue. Symptoms of dengue include high fever, headache, pain behind the eyes, joint and muscle pain, and rash. If persons have any of these symptoms, they should go to the nearest health center or hospital. It is advised to drink lots of liquids and avoid medication that contains aspirin.
Honey, our fridge has stopped working again. Everything in the freezer is melting. We need to get this repaired right away. I'm calling Brand Source Service.
When you need the very best appliance service, call Brand Source Service at 623-5000. Offering service and installation of all brands and models of appliances. Brand Source Service is Cayman's source for appliance parts and repairs with qualified and experienced technicians and the island's largest stock of appliance parts. Brand Source Service will have your repair completed in a flash. So, whatever the problem is, call the experts at 623-5000. Brand Source Service, Dorsey Drive, Industrial Park. Telephone 623-5000.
ValueMed Pharmacy is your community care partner for health and wellness needs. We offer convenient prescription processing at the counter and online at value-medpharmacy.com. That's VALU-medpharmacy.com, with pickup available at the Walkers Road or Boddentown location. We also accept transfer prescriptions from other pharmacies. More than just a pharmacy, shop ValueMed for personal care and beauty products from trusted brands, perfume and gift sets, Hallmark and greeting cards, baby clothes, footwear, handbags, swimwear, home decor, toys, school supplies, and stationery. And home convalescence aids like wheelchairs, walkers, crutches, canes, and hospital beds. With 2 locations to serve you, Walkers Road in Georgetown and in Evron Plaza, Boddentown. Visit ValueMed, more than just a pharmacy.
Your thoughts are just a telephone call away. 1-800-534-8255.
What the public is saying.
Let your voice be heard. And now,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. My name is Patrick Schmid and I'm standing in for Sterling Dwayne Banks today. We are now joined via computer link by the Deputy Director of the Department of Agriculture. I believe that the link is working. Good afternoon, sir. Are you there?
Yes, good afternoon. I'm hearing you loud. Can you hear me well?
Yes, sir. I hear you perfectly well. And I assume the listening audience is as well. How are you doing today?
Oh, great, thank you. Doing fine, given the circumstances. We're all making adjustments and doing the best we can. Hence, that's why I'm doing this by radio link today rather than being in the studio with you.
Absolutely, sir. I understand completely. Could you just bear with us for a moment? I think we may be having... Oh, okay. I think it's now sorted. We thought we had a technical issue because this is our first endeavor in this. But again, thank you for joining us. So could you please take it away in terms of letting us know what you would like to get out to the wider listening audience regarding the Department of Agriculture's efforts during this time in particular?
Certainly, yes. And we thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to the public. What we are trying to do at the department, like all the other essential departments, is to try and balance the need to protect our staff and to protect the public during this time, as well as to continue to deliver essential services that are critical to the farming community. As we know, we need to continue to keep local agriculture and food production going, as it is very important during this time. As well, of course, the department is the primary supplier of all of the feed for the livestock animals on the island, all the classes, cattle, goats, pigs, poultry. So it is essential, of course, that we keep the warehouse and the feed supplies operational, so that we can ensure these animals are fed and we don't have problems and run into welfare issues. So that's the first big issue, is what services are operating. and how we've adjusted hours and operation schedules to be able to keep these services going with the manpower that we have while trying to protect our staff, as I said, as well as the public. So the key and most essential one to most of the farming community is the agricultural sales service that operates out of our warehouse. This supplies all of the feed for livestock as well as key fertilizers and pesticides. We have adjusted the hours at the warehouse. We're now operating from 12 to 4:30 Monday through Friday, as well as our usual 8:30 to 1 on a Saturday. This is to facilitate, again, the sales operation. We've made one adjustment in that on Wednesdays, which is today for the first day, we've made Wednesdays exclusively for the 21 largest customers and farmers, because this will speed up the process, allow us to focus on these big orders that take truckloads of feed at a time. And so the individual coming to get, his 1 or 2 bags isn't standing around for half an hour waiting for these large orders to be filled and loaded. So that's an effort to try to make things run as efficiently as possible. Yes, and similarly, to keep things balanced, we are keeping our nursery operating on the same hours of 12 to 4. I think the nursery is important because, I say, the farmers still need to get seedlings to be able to continue to plant their crops, to be able to sustain their production.
And sorry, sir, could I just ask you, you did say with respect to Saturday, is it 8:30 to 1? Is that correct?
Yes, we've been operating on Saturdays now for a number of years. Right. Nothing has really changed there. We are maintaining our Saturday hours. In fact, Saturday has become one of our most popular days for individuals to come and get feed.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
And sorry to interrupt your course there.
No problem.
By all means,
sure.
Please continue.
Mm-hmm. So as I said, they're the two, the nursery and the warehouse are probably the ones where we have the greatest interaction directly with the farming community. Farmers are being very understanding. We're operating again at the warehouse a system where we're only letting 4 or 5 cars at a time onto the compound to be loaded. I know it is creating a bit of a lineup for people waiting to get their feed, but on the positive side, at least the people are lining up waiting in their cars and their trucks, so they're not interacting with one another. So we're very pleased to see that. Some of the other essential services that are still operating, of course, is the abattoir. The department operates the only licensed abattoir on the island for the slaughter and processing of local meat. So it's critical that we keep that operational. And the abattoir has very little contact with the public, only when the livestock are delivered. And we're ensuring that the guys who work there, the slaughtermen, have no contact whatsoever with the actual farmers who deliver the animals, or any contact with the public. So we're to try to make sure that we keep that crew as safe as possible, because these are a group of skilled individuals and there's not a lot of backup for them.
Right.
We are also continuing to have our veterinary service operate. Our 2 vets are still available. They're our essential service. They, however, are only operating, I want to stress this, in emergency situations. We've had to scale back on general herd health management or deworming, that sort of things that can be done by the farmer. The vets are available for genuine emergencies, calvings, or when animals are ill or where they have to be called out. So the farmers are well aware of the emergency number, and the vets continue to monitor that.
If I'm not
one
mistaken,
other area where, sure.
Sorry to interrupt you, sir, but if I'm not mistaken, just again for the listening audience, it's 916-2218. Is that correct?
You're absolutely right. Yes.
Okay, sir. And also, sir, are you prepared to take a call at the moment? Because we have someone on the
Sure.
line who would like to ask a question of yourself.
Absolutely, no problem.
Thank you, sir.
No problem at all.
We're going to try to go directly to that caller. Good afternoon, caller. You're on Talk Today.
Good afternoon, Mr. Schmid.
Good afternoon.
I am so happy to hear you on the radio.
Thank you.
This is Hill.
Yes.
I got 2 questions for the director here. Deputy Director, I think his title is. First one is, do you have any chicken feed, sir, in the cracked corn at the agriculture department? Because I've been there now twice and can't get enough feed for the chicken.
Mr. Kutcher.
Let me respond. Let me respond to that question. We have a delay with 1 container. The port has been extremely heavy the last 3 days. We've had 2 containers that were unfortunately delayed in the port. They were positioned badly. Apparently, I think the port's had a problem with a crane, and it was giving us trouble to get the containers out. I'm hoping that they're out this afternoon. I haven't checked, But I encourage the caller. Crack corn is, some people use it for feeding poultry, but we have ample supplies of layer pellets, layer crumbles, and poultry starter grower. And all three of these feeds are complete feeds and are much better for poultry than just the crack corn. Crack corn alone is a pure energy source. And if you're keeping caged poultry or even free range, you're better off if you're laying or raising them for meat to use one of the complete feeds, which is again the layer pellets or crumbles or the starter grower. You would get better results than just the plain crack corn. I know a lot of people like to use the crack corn for the feral chickens because they're also feeding on other things. But that would be my recommendation. We have plenty of layer pellets, crumbles, and starter grower in stock.
But
crack corn is
okay. I'm not finished yet. I thank you for your information or recommendation, but sometimes you have to take the chickens off the laying pellets. I got laying pellets, but I want to cut down on the eggs because I just got a backyard chicken run, But the next question is credit card payments. I've been suggesting this for so long. Why don't you all have a system where people can actually purchase feeds or whatever at the agriculture with a credit card or debit card? It's always cash. And today people hardly carry cash around.
Yes, sir. This is something that the department definitely will be considering and looking at. We have not brought it in the past because one of the things, it's an additional expense. As you know, if you operate a debit or credit card, you have to pay the bank an expense for doing so. And our fees are very heavily subsidized. So we have operated on a cash and a check basis for a number of years. But I think definitely we have to, times will change. And this is something I think we will probably see coming in the near future. We are doing some renovations to the warehouse and to the sales office this year. And hopefully as part of those changes, we'll be able to make some of these adjustments.
Thank you. I would love to see that happen because even though there's some extra charges, but usually business put it off to the consumers. So I would really like to see, a debit card system set up there where people can actually purchase their feeds and whatever the product they want. Anyway, thank you. I'll listen on. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you for your question, sir. The listeners, can I say one thing? The caller's question does make me want to stop one thing, and we've had this question several times. How is our feed supplies in particular? About 2 weeks ago, in anticipation of these challenges, we ramped up on our feed ordering. We've taken it up beyond the levels that we normally take it for hurricane season, where we try to increase our stocks and our flow of feed. We, of course, always have to balance the amount that we order against the shelf life of the feed because, feed only has a certain lifespan before it will start to spoil on you. But we have done so. We have adequate stocks. We have seen significant increases in purchases by some farmers, obviously wanting to minimize how often they come to the warehouse. And we have been able to service all of these customers to date without a problem. And we have an ample shipment of feed rolling. And I've been in touch with our suppliers. And in the US, the same way, livestock feed is treated as an essential industry. So we don't anticipate any problems with the mills or with shipping and deliveries.
Right, sir. Thank you so much for that clarification. I'm just going to take the opportunity as well, and forgive me for interrupting. We're just trying to coordinate the three-way conversation sometimes. It's a little bit complex. But we do have the government press briefing, official press briefing, scheduled to start at 1 o'clock. So we're just going to continue until such time as, if it's okay with you, until such time as we do have to break for that. But when we do, then it'll be an immediate break. And I'm just saying that for the benefit of the listening audience as well. With that said, I was wondering if I could also interject one of my own questions for you.
Sure, certainly.
Thank you. Basically, my question surrounds the whole issue of we're all aware of the fact that Cayman has never had a large, relatively large agricultural industry, and there are, of course, natural limitations on that process. And I just wonder whether this particular we have another call in line. If I'll just finish the question, sir. Basically, if this particular circumstance that we now find ourselves in, the world now finds itself in, has caused you to have additional pressures to be considering alternative means of local production of agricultural items?
Well, the department has always promoted that we need to look seriously at food security and food sovereignty. We, in fact, talk about food and nutrition security. We, of course, recognize and have always recognized that not everything can be grown here competitively, given our limited land space, our costs of production, but there are definite niche markets, and the department has and continues to actively promote farmers to go into production, to increase production, especially in those areas where we have competitive advantages. And we see that, for instance, in fruit trees where you can get a premium for a tree ripened mango versus one that's being picked 4 weeks ago.
Yes.
Fresh vegetables, tomatoes, peppers, winter vegetables, which are, during our cooler months do extremely well. We've seen a real big push in herbs, leafy greens, things that don't stand up well to transport. The poultry sector has been doing very well with eggs, etc. So yes, I think globally people are going to recognize the importance of increased domestic production at both from farmers, but even what we refer to as almost urban agriculture, backyard producers. People can't forget how important is just a couple of beds in the back of your house can make a huge difference to the quality of food and to your bank account.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. So I'm just going to go directly to the caller. Good afternoon, caller. You're on Talk Today.
Hello.
Hello, sir.
How are you doing?
Good. And yourself?
Fine, thanks.
Very good.
There's the gentleman from agriculture as well.
That's correct, sir.
Oh,
yes, sir.
Thank you so much. Great. Something I want to say that more than I have been observing for quite a number of years. When we talk about, agriculture department and what we have and what we should do, really, it grieves my heart and my spirit to see some of these farmers, and some are big farmers, that they can have these cattle out in the sun, in the middle of the summertime especially, nothing to shade them. They have to sit down out in the sun. And that is unaccepted in my books. And it's high time that agriculture department and the Humane Society as well do something about these people that think that they can bring in these cattle and just let them go out in the sun, not one sheet of zinc or anything to put their head under. Then we wonder why the beef is tough. Look, my friend, I can tell you, I got my experience like anyone else with the consumption of beef. And nothing is more deteriorating to your beef than when you have your cattle out in the sun with no shade. That affects the quality of your beef. Now, I'm not going to say anything anymore, but I said enough to let the gentleman know that this is unacceptable. I mean, these cattle got feeling like anything else. You see them sometimes trying to get any place that they could get a little bit of shade. And I hope what I have said, it is taken in the context that it was meant to be. So thank you very much for listening to me, and have a pleasant day. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Critchlow, did you want
Yes,
to?
sir.
Okay.
Thank you, the gentleman, for his comments. Yes, any cattle farmer should recognize that you have to provide livestock with access to shade, whether it be natural shade in terms of trees within your pasture, or whether it be some sort of artificial shaded area that the cattle can seek out and go under when in the day when they choose. Oftentimes it should be available to the animals. That's the key thing, to make sure that they have access to shade. So if the animals are free to move around and there's a shade structure on the property or shade trees, then they will usually seek that out and find it. The problem may come if somebody is tied an individual animal where there's no shade, then our animal welfare officers would definitely look into that matter.
Yes, sir.
I know time is short. I just also want to mention, I don't want to leave out the sister islands.
Of course.
I want to mention that we've adjusted hours in Cayman Brac as well. Slightly different. It suits Cayman Brac. It's more suits our office in Cayman Brac to go to morning. So the office in Cayman Brac will be open from 8:30 to 1, Monday through Friday. If any farmers, the area compound up on the bluff will be generally closed to the public to protect the staff that work there. But if any farmers where seedlings are being produced for them, they will be advised when the seedlings are ready and when they can come and pick them up. They pay for them and pick them up. And we've also modified the office in Cayman Brac slightly so that staff no longer enter the office to interact directly with the cashier. we've converted the window basically into a sales window with perspex glass, so that the cashier is shielded from the public, but they can still interact and be able to purchase their goods. And last time, also similarly, hours change, or agricultural inspection service office, those who deal with imports and export permits. The hours for that group has also been adjusted to 8:30 to 1. However, the staff, that's the public hours, but the staff, of course, is flexible because they have to do inspections on fresh produce, other things like that coming in. So their hours vary depending on when the cargo arrives, etc.
Right, sir. Thank you so much for that clarification. And just along the same lines, we've received a question on WhatsApp regarding the farmers market. Would you be able to tell us whether you're aware of whether the farmers market will still be open and if they have changed hours?
I've had a conversation with the board of the farmers market. At the moment, they are still operating. They have been increased signage and are looking to hire. I think the last I heard, they spoke to me yesterday, they were pursuing to hire a security guard to try and help customers and remind customers of the importance of social distancing at the farmers market. The farmers market is still treated essentially like a supermarket, so they fall in that same category. So they are allowed to operate. I know they've been having some discussions about spreading out the market because the two most popular days are Fridays and Saturday mornings.
Yes,
but they were talking about spreading out the number of vendors that come on different days to reduce the contact of the vendors in the market. I think they're still monitoring the situation to see if they needed to make that change. So at the moment, they're still operating because, of course, you don't want to cut off the access of the public to fresh local food as well.
Absolutely. And so because the regular hours are not affected by the curfew as it currently stands, I presume that the 7:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. approximately applies.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, that wouldn't affect the market. Yes.
Yes, sir.
And I think the last area that people are getting confused about, we made make some announcements that our animal rescue shelter was closed and that we wouldn't be routinely picking up stray dogs during this period because, again, we've had to send a number of staff home. All our staff who have underlying medical conditions who are particularly at risk, all of them being sent home, as well as, so we've reduced our staff. However, we still have our animal welfare officers available and some of our animal control, and we will respond to any serious animal welfare or issues or to support the RCIPS in cases where they have any dangerous dog, or dogs out of control situations. So although we're not routinely picking up strays, we haven't shut down animal welfare completely. As I said, we would just be on a response basis to, emergency issues.
Right, sir. And so, Mr. Critchlow, we're actually, as it turns out, we're not quite ready for the press briefing. We're going to go to the news, and I would ask that you stay with us in case the press briefing isn't quite ready yet. And as soon as it does, then we'll go directly into the press briefing. Is that satisfactory to you, sir?
Of course. The press briefing is the most important thing, and but I'm happy to stay on the line and continue the conversation as long as you have time available.
Great. Thank you so much, sir. Going straight to the news now.
Today's biggest news.
Radio K-Man.
It's only two species of
Generations present.
Your voice, your choice.
For today's biggest news.
access to information.
Local, regional, international, this is headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom team.
Today's biggest news.
Police say they're trying to track down 40-year-old Manuel Carter Ramirez of West Bay, who is wanted in connection with his series of burglaries in West Bay between March 16th and 19th. They need your help, but police say Mr. Carter Ramirez is known to be violent and should not be approached. He is described as 140 pounds, between 5 feet 5 inches tall and 5 feet 7 inches in height, and is light brown in complexion. If seen, call 911 immediately. Good afternoon, I'm Dion Anglin with your headlines in news elsewhere. Spain's death toll from the coronavirus has surpassed the official figure from China, becoming the second highest in the world. Deaths have risen by 738 in just 24 hours to a total of 3,434, a record spike for Spain. In comparison, China has officially reported 3,285 deaths, while Italy, the worst affected country, has 6,820. And Canada's multi-billion-dollar relief package to respond to the coronavirus slowdown has passed in the Senate. It allows the government to spend $57 billion in emergency aid and economic stimulus. The bill received approval today with support from all parties after amendments that removed provisions giving Cabinet unprecedented powers. That's a wrap of your headlines. I'm Dion Anglin.
Stay in touch with Radio Cayman for the latest in news and information.
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, www.radiocayman.gov.ky.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice, your radio.
At Canine Resort and Spa, your dog gets the red carpet treatment. That's why people trust us and pets love us. Offering doggy daycare, boarding, training, and grooming services for any breed, size, or style. From head to tail, we'll make your dog smile.
Choose from 4 grooming packages, from the basic bronze package of a hydrobath, shampoo and conditioner, wash and blowout, to the platinum package including spa services like a doggy massage and berry facial. Canine will help your pet look picture perfect. Receive a loyalty card where your 6th grooming package is free. Limited availability.
Visit canineresort.com for details on grooming packages, doggy daycare, and resort services. Canine Resort and Spa, where the posh dogs go.
Start getting your debt under control with a debt consolidation loan from Fidelity Bank. At Fidelity, your loan decision is quick with no runaround. Plus, with competitive interest rates and fees, we will help you reduce your monthly payments and get you back to living again. Don't let the burden of overwhelming debt tie you down this year. Call Fidelity today and let's make it happen with a Fidelity Bank debt consolidation loan. Fidelity, we're good for you.
This is a public service announcement from your Radio Cayman, your community radio station. Here are some coronavirus prevention tips.
Home isolation means staying indoors and completely avoiding contact with other people. You need to do this if you have symptoms of COVID-19. If you are practicing home isolation, you should stay in a well-ventilated room with a window to outside that can be opened separate from other people in your home. Keep the door closed and use a separate bathroom from the rest of the household, if available. If you have to share these facilities, regular sterilization will be required. Consider drawing up a bathroom schedule for washing or bathing and have the isolated person using the facilities last.
For the latest updates and information, please visit hsa.ky/public-health/coronavirus or gov.ky/coronavirus.
Radio Cayman News.
Local grocery stores are forced to implement product limits after panic buying by residents.
The government is taking in all seriousness the magnitude and the severity of this matter.
A reminder from the Chief Medical Officer, all people who have arrived on flights are required to self-isolate.
I think the most likely decision 3 weeks from now is an extension of the current state.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice for today's biggest news.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Patrick Schmid sitting in for Sterling Dwayne Banks. My pleasure to be here with you, the Caymanian listening audience, and please stay tuned as we're going to have a government press briefing coming up shortly. I have with me now, however, the pleasure of Mr. Brian Critchlow, the Deputy Director for Agriculture, Department of Agriculture. Mr. Critchlow, can you hear me still?
Yes, still hearing you fine, thank you.
Okay, sir. I hope I'm not butchering your name too much.
No.
No pun intended.
Pronounced it perfectly.
Okay, sir. I just wanted to quickly point out that, I mean, you've already spoken to the point that the caller brought up regarding cruelty to animals, in particular livestock, and I was recalling the fact that that we have an animals law, and which was relatively recently amended, of course. And if I'm not mistaken, it is your department which is actually meant to be contacted if anyone sees any form of abuse to animals, whether they be pets or otherwise. Is that correct, sir?
That's absolutely correct. Yes, there is a there is the contact detail available on our website.
Yes, sir.
There's an animal cruelty reporting email address, or you can always call the office to report any animal cruelty. The animals law, however, you mentioned was recently updated. It was only updated minor recently to bring it in line with the National Conservation Law. In fact, this is one of these laws that's now currently ministry is working on review of the law, because there are several key areas of the animals law that significantly needs updating, that haven't really been updated since the late 90s. So which would make the law, we're hoping that these changes will make it a lot easier to enforce the law going forward.
Thank you, sir. We must go to the press conference now. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much for your time. Have a good day.
You too, sir.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Just to the listening audience, sorry for that short break. We're trying to sort of whatever technical issues may be there, but that should be sorted shortly. And so with that in mind, I'd just like to thank everyone who has been sending in questions via WhatsApp and email. Certainly it shows a great deal of interest by our populace generally, and of course taking personal responsibility and doing your part is all part and parcel of the important aspect of fighting the coronavirus in the way that we should do as a country and in a united manner. Just want to take the opportunity to once again remind everybody that it is our time to reflect, especially as we have, many of us, more time than we would normally have, reflect on the fact that we are all here for a purpose, and we must remember our respective faiths as well, and keep the faith so that we can ensure a positive frame of mind to deal with these issues as they arise on a daily basis, not pay too much attention to unofficial reports, especially on the social media or hearsay that's otherwise passed on, but rather to pay attention in particular to the press briefings that are held daily by the government in an official capacity, and also, if possible or where possible, to either call or visit the website of the HSA. You've been reminded of the call numbers, but for example, if you feel like you have any flu symptoms, the number is 947-3077 or 1-800-534-8600. You can also, if you have if you're not experiencing any symptoms but you just have general questions, there are various other lines depending on the type of question that you may have. For example, if you reach out to Hazard Management or Cayman Prepared, that is another option for you. And also take the opportunity to remind the listening audience that there is a mental health hotline for those of us who will naturally feel somewhat depressed with all of the stress that this kind of pandemic brings on for everyone. No one is immune to the stress, certainly. And the number is 1-800-534-6463. That line has been operable since last Friday, and therefore I would encourage anyone who feels like they need to speak to someone and ask some questions, or they have unanswered questions or doubts, then it is important to utilize that facility as well. And in the interim, as I mentioned, whilst we're waiting for the press briefing, if there's anyone who wants to call in and ask a question, even if I do not necessarily have the answer in front of me, I will certainly seek it out so that at some point we can provide that to the listening audience. Again, it is so important that we all take it one day at a time, keep a positive frame of mind, and do our part to comply with the regulations that have been put in place, to observe the protocols that have been put in place in terms of regular hand washing, in terms of keeping our distance, at least a minimum of 6 feet from other persons, and to try as best as possible to ensure that there is no further spread of the virus to the extent that we have any control over it within our islands. Certainly, at the same time, we recognize that every country in the world is fighting this matter, and we hope that they will have success as well, so that once we are reassured that we have things under control, that eventually we'll be able to open our borders to the wider international community, because they will also have things relatively under control. We do have a caller on the line, and so I just go straight to the caller. Good afternoon, caller. You're on Talk Today.
Good afternoon, Patrick. This is Nellie Wells from West Bay.
Good afternoon. How are you, ma'am?
I'm okay. I just want to say you're doing an excellent job.
Thank you.
Keeping us updated with everything, and I don't know what happened to Sterling, but I'm going to say you can fill in for him anytime.
Well, I don't know about that. I don't know if you heard him earlier, but like I said, big shoes to fill. He has a lot more experience at this than I do, but I certainly do appreciate your compliments, and he's just to let you know, he's perfectly fine. So that's not a problem, for anyone to worry about.
I know we're waiting for the press conference. I'm just trying to keep busy, keep my mind off things here.
Yes, ma'am.
I was just saying I want to congratulate you because I've heard you on for quite a while now, keeping us updated.
Yes, ma'am.
Keep up the good works, my son. Okay?
I very much appreciate it.
Keep safe.
I very much appreciate it. And also you and your family, all the best, and keep safe. And, hopefully we'll all be greeting each other in the normal way as opposed to foot bumping and elbow bumping in the near future.
I don't get out too much now. Maybe just to the supermarket. So trying to, stay busy, man.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Good to talk to you, son.
All the very best.
Bye. You too.
Thank you very much. We're still waiting for the press briefing to go online. But with that said, I believe we have a few more questions. I'm just reading from WhatsApp. And there's a question here which says, is it illegal? This was actually for Mr. Critchlow, who is not currently with us at the moment. But it states, is it illegal to cull the chickens who are the biggest pests now? And the answer to that question, to the best of my knowledge, it is not there's no official cull in the same way that there is an official cull as mandated by the government, and in particular coordinated through the Department of Environment. However, with respect to iguanas, that is to say the green iguanas, but the sort of local culling, so to speak, as long as it does not constitute what would be considered cruelty to animals, then there is nothing that I'm aware of. I say that with that big caveat that I'm aware of, that makes it illegal per se. Especially if, for example, you're a farmer, you have a large mango crop, and or whatever form of crop that you may be producing or trying to produce, and the chickens are making it impossible for you to produce, then that I would have thought qualified as being perfectly acceptable under the law. We do have to go to a short break, following which we have a caller, depending on whether or not we are going to press briefing. Thank you so much. We'll be right back. Stay tuned to Talk Today.
This announcement from your Radio Cayman, your community radio station. Here are some coronavirus prevention tips.
Self-isolation is an effective precautionary measure to protect those around you, your family, friends, and colleagues from contracting COVID-19. You or the person you are caring for should remain in your home except for getting medical care. Do not go to work, school, or public areas. You will need to ask for help if you require groceries, other shopping, or medications. please seek the advice from the Public Health Department.
For the latest updates and information, please visit hsa.ky/public-health/coronavirus or gov.ky/coronavirus.
For nearly 20 years, King Sports Center has been the heart of the Cayman fitness and wellness community. In order to ensure the welfare of all, we will be temporarily closing on March 23rd, reopening on April 6th, unless otherwise notified by the Cayman Islands government. During these trying times, we encourage everyone to maintain a healthy lifestyle, mind, body, and soul. We look forward to continuing providing you with world-class service in the very near future. Remain strong and continue to show the world the power of Cayman unity. King Sports Center, your one-stop shop for fitness, recreation, and relaxation.
The Cayman Islands government would like to remind the public that e-services are available for vehicle license renewal, trade and business licensing, police clearance, and other transactions. Skip the line and apply online. E-services are user-friendly, efficient, and most important, you can apply and pay from the comfort of your home. Visit eservices.gov.ky.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Welcome back to Talk Today. This is Patrick Schmid sitting in for Sterling Dwayne Ebanks. We do have a call on the line, so we'll go directly to that caller. But just before we do, if I could just quickly say, obviously, they're having some sound issues at the press briefing. So, again, that is going to go live as soon as they have that rectified. So, good afternoon, caller. You're on Talk Today.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. How are you today?
I am grateful, and I'm also grateful for the fact that you are able to step in to
Thank you, sir.
To the left seat. I would say that you are as able as the pilot himself, and it was good to hear his voice today.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much, because you are here for a time like this to assist those of us who need guidance and help, but also to provide, using all of the experiences that you have, including a bit of international experience, and to be able to bring a voice that can reach out to context and to our community, and to helping to quietly and diplomatically put those who need to be put in their place.
All right.
Yes, sir. It's fascinating. I would just love to commend the fact that our government is doing. We are in, I would say, in the top 10 percentile of governments that are being very proactive in making sure that we have as least of loss of life and limb as can be possible, and also maintaining that reasonable balance. It is also at a time like this that we can come to appreciate our civil service, the quality of our civil service, and the length and breadth of government. There are certain group segments who consider the
Sorry,
concept of
sir.
government.
I'm so sorry to have to interrupt you, but unfortunately we have to go direct to the press briefing, and I'd like to thank you so much for your comments, sir.
Interpreter joining us again this afternoon. So, Dr. Lee, we'd like to begin again with you, please, sir.
Good afternoon. I'd like to start by going through what sounds like a slightly complicated explanation, but it might help in everybody's understanding. When the laboratories receive a sample for the possibility of COVID-19, a screening test is run on the polymerase chain reaction machine. If this screening test is positive, we go on to do a confirmatory test. We have received back the 20 samples from CARFA that we sent, the results back from CARFA on the 20 samples we sent, which were our first 20 that we ran through the lab here at the HSA. And I'm pleased to say that 19 of the results concurred with our results that they were negative. One of them was positive at CARFA when we had previously reported it as negative. Just to give you a bit more information about that particular sample itself, the sample screened positive when we put it through the screening test, but when we put it through the confirmatory test, the result came back as negative. The patient had been the subject had been isolated at all times and remains in isolation. We will now be changing the process so that anything that screens positive will be reported as a preliminary, as inconclusive, and will then be sent to CARFA for testing for confirmation. In addition, we will continue to send all our positives to CARFA and 10% of our negatives. I also have more results to report today. I now am able to provide the outcomes for the next 22 tests that have been run through the laboratories at the Health Services Authority. We have 2 positive tests which occurred in people with a confirmed travel history. Those people have been isolated all the while and will continue to be isolated, and 20 negative tests. So by my quick count, which I've done just before we went live, we currently have 114 negative tests that we've done here at the Health Services Authority, and added to the 4 negative that were previously provided from CARFA, that brings us to a total of 118 negative tests. For the positive tests, we have 8 in total that are confirmed as positive, because all of our results are moving from preliminary to confirmed now, apart from any that we announce as being inconclusive, and we still are investigating the 1 patient at HSA, which currently we have inconclusive results on.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. I'd like to open the floor to questions from the media. Reshma?
Thank you. Good afternoon again. Reshma Raghunath, Cayman Compass. Dr. Lee, can you tell us what has changed in this process of verification? Now, is it that you're going to be running additional tests for the results that you have from the tests that you've conducted on island? And also, can you provide us with how many outstanding tests we have on island given these changes?
Yes, so the difference is that we are now going to, the screening test that I've described is actually a far more sensitive test than the confirmatory test. So we're going to now be reporting every screen test positive as inconclusive, and all of the inconclusives plus all of the positives will be sent to CARFA for final confirmation. We will also be sending 1 in 10 of our negative tests to CARFA for a cross-check on the negatives. I don't know the absolute number of how many are outstanding. I have a rough figure here which I was presented a couple of hours ago of 51, but that number climbs as we talk.
In terms of the testing that you have done, how many times have you run the tests? I know we had limited supplies of the tests on island. Can you tell us how many tests we have remaining? And I know you had ordered some as well. How many have arrived?
So we previously reported that CARFA had received some reagents from PAHO, which took up our capacity, which raised our capacity, but not by that much. We currently have, I would hazard a guess, somewhere around 150, the capability to test another 150, but those are tests, they're not individual patients, because sometimes tests are run twice. If the machine shows, the machine sometimes shows a funny result, then we'll put the sample back through, but that's all related to how a laboratory would normally run its processes.
Given the limited tests that we have, I know the Chrissy Thompson Hospital has offered to start testing as well. How much of a integration with those tests between HSA and the private hospitals is happening, and how much of assistance there will be to running more tests and at a faster rate?
I think it's a very exciting opportunity. I mean, the more tests we can do, if we're able to test much more widely and to test many more people, it will change the way that we can manage the problem in Cayman. Our problem has been we just simply don't have enough reagents really to get the test through. So we have had to stick to a fairly rigid testing protocol in order that that we can manage our resources. If we're able to get more reagents, then clearly that can relax. And having another machine enables us to have more capacity across the board. So as you're quite rightly saying, we can test more people every day. I don't know the supplies of Chrissy Tomlinson as far as their reagents are concerned. I know that there seems to be a worldwide shortage, and that the Crown agencies have been trying to source stuff for us here in Cayman, as we're a UK overseas territory, as well as the usual procurement routes that are really quite wide that the HSA has, and we're struggling to do so. But the Doctors Hospital have been in close communication with, not only were they visited by Public Health England, so that the Public Health England experts in the laboratory have actually seen what's there, but also they're in close communication in order to try and to get there very soon. And we're looking forward to that. That'll be a great addition.
Good afternoon. Ralph Lewis, Caymanian Times. Dr. Lee, can you give a brief explanation? What is the CARFA criteria for testing?
The criteria are actually the World Health Organization's criteria. Without reading them out verbatim, which would be terribly boring, essentially you need to have had contact with a patient who's known to have COVID-19, or a healthcare worker who's had contact with a patient who's had COVID-19, or have been travelled to a country where there's known to be local transmission of the disease COVID-19, or have respiratory symptoms that have no other explanation.
Okay, all right. Have any of the students been tested? Can you say?
I suspect some of them have, but I don't know the exact details. There are a fair number of tests that are outstanding. As you can hear, there are 51 outstanding right across the island.
Okay, the last question for you, Doctor. If a passenger has a travel history and is confirmed positive, and it's found out that person passed on the virus to other members in the community, is there a penalty for that person? It's clear that that person did not follow protocol.
I don't believe there would be a penalty. If it was done knowingly, that would be slightly differently to if they were known to be infected. It's a different condition, different state than if they did not know they're infected. And if they were known to be infected, then I would. That's a very serious accusation, and I would imagine that would be considered. I would need to ask the legal department, but that is a very serious situation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph. We just have one question joining us from Wendy from Cayman News Service. She's asked Dr. Lee if you could kindly break down the 8 positives in terms of local transmission versus travel history. And she's also asked about the case of the man in Honduras, whether there was any confirmation about that case, please.
Okay. So, all of the confirmed cases that we have are related to traveller incidents in one way or another. 6 of these relate to, I beg your pardon, 6 of these relate to incidents around Health City, Cayman Islands, and which was caused by people that had come to the island. And 2 of them are from people who travelled to different countries elsewhere. We still have that one case which we believe to have been community acquired, but the test result itself is still undergoing some further investigations.
Thank you. We'll take one more from you, Reshma, and then we'll move on to the other members of the panel. Thank you.
Dr. Lee, just to clarify, the additional positive cases that you reported on today, can you say where these cases from? Is it Health City individuals or people who would have presented themselves to the hospital? Can you share some info on those?
Yep. These are samples that Public Health would have arranged not at Health City. These are 2 people that have had, I'm not sure of the details again, but they've either presented to the flu clinic or they've had a sample taken in the community and it's been tested in that way.
And the individuals that they would have been in contact with, have they been notified? Are they isolated? And is contact tracing being done for these 2 individuals?
Yes, but the people were travellers, and we have been desperately trying to get the message across that anybody who's travelled and all of their household contacts need to stay isolated in their homes, and this is exactly the reason we've been trying to say that. Thank you for bringing that point up.
Thank you. Kevin?
Kevin Morales, Cayman Compass. Dr. Lee, is it fair to call, if we were to call that a false negative, is that an accurate way to describe that particular result?
Yes, but it wouldn't. That was the first batch that we had sent. But in essence, yes.
Screening tests had been run for, that's the initial test that's given to people locally.
Correct.
Have there been any others, just confirm, there have been no others that have been sent for the confirmation testing, which we then found out?
Correct.
So all the screening tests up until now?
The issue is all the other tests which have screened positive have come back positive in the HSA's laboratory. So there's not been that same scenario of this particular one. It is possible that that sample was taken much later in the disease process. That sample, that maybe have some influence in that particular case.
So just hearing that, the public might feel a little bit more insecure, possibly about the testing process. What would you say to people who maybe have some concerns now?
I think the screening test is the really sensitive one. So I'm very confident about that if the screening test is positive, we're now going to report it as needing further confirmation, inconclusive, but we're going to treat the person as positive in terms of putting a ring around them and so on. And I'm very encouraged that all of the other results that came back were correct. So that is good, and I continue to have confidence in the laboratory because the experts have not only conversed but gone to visit and watched what's happened that's going on there.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honourable Premier.
Hello, everyone. Last night at 7 o'clock, the curfew came into effect. For the first time, I will leave the Commissioner at the appropriate point to talk in more detail about it. But I took the opportunity myself to to be driven around, I should say, not to take a drive, to be driven around part of the island to see that everything was going as planned, and an opportunity also to talk to a couple of the officers about how things were going. So that has gone very well, and I want to express my thanks and that of the government to the officers who are doing an exceptional job in very difficult and worrying times, and they have much more to do. Yesterday afternoon, I expressed some frustration at what was transpiring with respect to our efforts to put in place a shelter-in-place arrangement for the balance of this curfew period, so that everyone understands what we're trying to do and what result we are working towards. We locked down the borders of this country on Sunday evening last. The incubation period for COVID-19 is 5 to 7 days. Since then, no other persons would have come here. So what we are trying to achieve in doing what we're doing is, during this period of still considerable risk of community transmission of the virus, we are trying to take every measure we can to avoid or to lower the risk of community transmission. That means keeping people apart from each other as far as possible. That means reducing groups of people congregating. That is what all of these measures are aimed at. So the curfew has the effect of essentially sending people home to their homes at 7 o'clock until 5 in the morning. The shelter-in-place provisions, had we been able to introduce them, would have been significantly reduced the number of people who are at work during the course of the day, and essentially kept people home for most of the day, just allowing them out for essential purposes a few times for the day. None of this is perfect. None of this eliminates the risk. We're seeking to try to reduce it as far as possible while allowing people to live as normally as possible. But as I indicated yesterday evening, and the numbers are still growing, we've actually closed down the essential.com KY email because we can't cope with the sheer number of requests for people to be designated as essential persons or businesses as essential services. We had, as I sit here, there were more than 850 email requests, totaling more than 20,000 persons. Now, I know our Commissioner of Police is a great guy, very able, but I don't know how he's supposed and his team are supposed to monitor that number of essential persons on the road. So as I sit here, we have concluded that at present, that is an absolutely futile exercise on our part. But our concern, which has brought about this approach, is only heightened today by 2 more positive results, albeit not community transmission. The number of cases in the community continues to grow. And so the government, in consultation with His Excellency and with the agreement of the Commissioner of Police, has decided that with effect from 7 p.m. tonight, the country will go into 24-hour curfew, all 3 islands. And so from 7 p.m. tonight until 5 a.m. Saturday morning, the country is in lockdown. During that period, between now and then, the government will continue to work on a shelter-in-place program. We are going to include the leader of the opposition in these discussions, and we hope to be able to put together a regime which the country and the people of the country, particularly the business people in the country, will support and cooperate in, or cooperate with. We need a program which is capable of being monitored by the Royal Cayman Islands Police Service without any more undue pressure than they already have to deal with. That means the program we put in place has to have community buy-in and support. I repeat, the objectives are to reduce the risk of community transmission by reducing the number of people in any given place at any given time. If we are able to put this in place and it works, we will not have to think about, again, going into a 24-hour-a-day lockdown. But that will remain an option if, when we introduce the shelter-in-place program on Saturday morning, the Commissioner tells us on Saturday evening or Sunday that this isn't working, I can't keep track of people. We are trying, for the benefit of those who may not have heard me before or have not fully appreciated what I'm saying, we are trying to get to a point where we can say with some certainty that there is none or very little evidence of significant community transmission. That, having shut down the country borders on Sunday, that means we need to get to somewhere about this time next week, maybe a little later in the week, when we can perhaps start to relax a little bit if there aren't more of these cases popping up in the community. I know, my government knows, the governor knows, The commissioner knows we have been agonizing over this like you would not believe, that this is hugely inconvenient, hugely costly, hugely restrictive. None of us want that. But I believe all of us will agree that going through this difficult, restrictive period for the next 10 days or so is far to be preferred to many of our people getting sick, having to extend this period for I don't know how long. Looking at other countries, we're talking 12 weeks, 15 weeks, 16 weeks. Burying many of our own people and having no sense of normalcy as to how we live for the foreseeable future. If this strategy succeeds and we get to 10, 12 days from now with no significant increase in the numbers and no significant evidence of community transmission, as I said before, it would have been an incredible feat. But let's not just celebrate it for that, the possibility for that. It will mean we'll be able to send our children back to school. We'll be able to open back businesses. We will be able to have some degree of social interaction again without the fear of this evil still lurking in the community. That is the prize that I want the whole country to understand we are striving for. And we can do this together. In fact, we can only do it together because you can only govern by consent. No matter how many officers the commissioner has, he cannot effectively do the job of protection of the community if the community rejects that. We understand that. So again, I am asking everyone in this country, business owners, I know that you all are hurting. I know what this is going to do to your businesses. People in the financial services industry, you as well. You are a key component of what makes us work. But we all got to bite this bullet. We all got to suck this up for a little while to get to what I hope is the prize on the other side of all of this. And so I'm not going to go through the long list of each company that is going to be exempted from the curfew, as I did yesterday. As I said, we've had to close down the essential at gov.ky email. We've created a new one called curfew time at gov.ky. And if you fall into one of these categories, you need to contact the office there, go through the process, and get designated so that that list can be handed to the Commissioner of Police. I want to say that every single employee in your business, in your organization, is not entitled to be exempted. In one instance, we had one company apply for 700 exemptions. Every person in your company is not essential for the purposes of this exercise. The supermarkets are not going to open during the curfew period, neither the pharmacies, neither the gas stations. There are going to be no businesses open unless they are required for essentially emergency care. So I'll just quickly go through this list. The first list, I think I'll go through in some detail because there are some big departments and organizations that people need to know. Police and licensed security services, 911, fire, prison service, customs and border control, Department of Environmental Health, island waste carriers, junk, emergency medical, including the HSA, Health City, doctors, hospital, and ambulance services, doctors' offices for personal emergency care, Department of Environment, the Marine Enforcement Unit, MRCU, only for the purpose of spraying and mosquito control. The Department of Children and Family Service for emergency social work only. The Weather Service, Cayman Islands Airports Authority to facilitate the continuing runway works, island paving, CAA, DVS for emergency vehicle service only, NEOC members, ministers and members of cabinet and the Legislative Assembly, the Premier's office staff, the Governor's office staff, Cabinet Office portfolio, the Office of Public Prosecution, Judicial Administration, and the Attorney General's chambers. And then utilities and infrastructure, Port Authority, Water Authority, Cayman Water Company, CUC, Flow, Digicel, Logic, and C3. Food and medical distributors, only staff for shipping, receiving, and warehouse processing. Those include the grocery stores and the other distributors. Transportation and shipping, delivery of food and medical supplies only. Food vendors and restaurants who are delivering food only. And obviously, the staff they need to cook and prepare that food. Various charity organizations that provide emergency or other care, Meals on Wheels, Cayman Crisis Center, Jasmine's Hospice, and Feed Our Future. Specialist care for the elderly and vulnerable, emergency veterinary services, those who care for animals in captivity, the press, and other media. And that is the current list. As I said, if you think you ought to be under one of those listings, please contact the Ministry of International Trade on curfew time, all one word, at gov.ky. I thank everyone for paying such close attention to these press briefings and what we're having to say. I know this is a really radical measure. The government knows it's a really radical measure, but everyone who's paying attention to what's happening in the rest of the world ought to understand why we're doing what we're doing. If we get into significant community spread of this virus in this country, it is going to have devastating consequences. It is going to swiftly overwhelm our ability to deal with it. The WHO are recommending testing. We don't have the capacity for testing. So we don't know what's out there unless someone has symptoms and comes and asks for a test. So we have to take these measures against this invisible danger because we don't know what else to do. We are trying to suppress the community transmission of this disease so that we don't get to the point where the health services are challenged the way they are in just about every country that is dealing with this, even the United Kingdom. And you see what's happening there. And let me, as I remember the UK, I just want, on behalf of the Cayman Islands government, to extend our best wishes to Prince Charles, who, as many of you will know, has recently tested positive for COVID-19. I want to knock on the head any rumors. I saw one start to bubble up this morning. Myself and a delegation met with Prince Charles in February at his home, one of his homes in the UK. So that everyone knows what the timing is, today is exactly 1 month since we met with him. I and the delegation have been home for 25 days. The incubation period for the virus is 5 to 7 days. So I think that I am as likely to have that virus as just about anyone else in the community, and I certainly would not have contracted it from him. So I hope I knocked that one rumor quickly on the head. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Your Excellency.
Yeah, thank you very much, Premier, and thank you for your best wishes for His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales, which obviously I share very much as well. I strongly support the measures that the Premier has just outlined. As we've said repeatedly, that the countries that have done best globally to control COVID-19 have acted quickly, decisively and robustly. And this is exactly, once again, what the government is doing today. And as the Premier said, this next week is absolutely critical for us here in the Cayman Islands. In fact, it's our moment of maximum danger. So we want you to stay home. We want you to limit human contact to the maximum extent possible. Because as the Premier said, that gives us the best chance on these islands to suppress any community-wide transmission out there. And that will, of course, ensure we can protect our elderly and our vulnerable. I do want to refer to the curfew last night. As the Premier said, it went extremely well. There was one arrest. I'll ask the Police Commissioner to say a few words in a moment. But I do want to thank everybody in the community for their cooperation with police officers last night. And I do want to thank the Police Commissioner and his police service for carrying that out in a highly efficient and effective way. And if we can keep that going exactly like last night, we are in very good shape, and I urge cooperation from everybody in that. Now, as the Premier said, we're going to be looking at the shelter-in-place procedures and policy, and that will be announced. And on Saturday, when the curfew ends in the morning, we are hoping it will be possible for people to visit the supermarket, visit a pharmacy, take exercise. But how that happens and how the police enforce it needs to be worked out. But that is the intention. And then the curfew, the night curfew, will continue for the 10 days. Another point of maximum danger is our supermarkets. And I want to emphasize again that today and on Saturday, there is no reason whatsoever for everybody to rush to the supermarkets. We have supplies coming in, and we have plentiful supplies. There is no risk to the supply of goods to the Cayman Islands, and this is not a hurricane situation. So I would just urge everybody to be sensible about how and when they need to go to the supermarkets, and there is no need for panic buying. I think we can take some confidence in our testing, and the Chief Medical Officer has said that. The vast majority of the tests we've done on Ireland have been reaffirmed by CARFA. So that gives us confidence that the testing we are doing is accurate, with one or two exceptions. So I would just continue to urge everybody to follow the health advice. Let's all play our part and do what we can over the next 7 days, because as the Premier said, there is a prize out there for us. And if we can avoid community-wide transmission here over the next 7 to 10 days, we probably will be in one of the best positions of any country in the world. But that depends on all of you playing your part to make sure we have a chance to achieve that. So appeal to everybody to do their bit. So I will just finish there by saying that the Chief Medical Officer mentioned the need for more testing equipment. The UK is working hard for all the overseas territories to source additional PPE, that's personal protective equipment, and the materials for the testing. And we obviously need to get it here. It's not going to arrive immediately, but plans are in foot to get that to the Cayman Islands and the other overseas territories as soon as possible. And my office is working very hard to deliver that quickly. I will leave it there today. Thank you.
Thank you. Minister for Health.
Thank you. Good afternoon. In the essence of time, let me say thank you to the students in isolation, all the residents of the Cayman Islands at home. You're making us proud with your patience shown. And again, these measures are necessary and will be difficult for all of us. And it will pain a little, but we will gain a lot more. We're trying all we can to source what is needed in terms of equipment for frontline and for frontline staff and patients. The countries who were friends in crisis are also in crisis. So at times we are at their mercy. Hence the reason we are taking all these measures to keep our positives to a minimum. Just want to say, may God guide and protect these Cayman Islands. Great and marvelous are thy works, O Lord. All our ways are under your eyes. You hold all powers in your hands. In you there is a mercy and love. You're a miracle worker. Shower your grace and tender mercies on us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, sir. Was there anything else you wanted to add before I'll invite the Commissioner to give us an update on the curfew situation from last night? Commissioner?
If I might just say something, I'm getting, my phone is blowing up here. Because I said 24-hour curfew, I said 24-hour a day. That means when the curfew starts at 7 p.m. this evening, it will continue through 5 a.m. on Saturday morning.
Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Just in respect of the curfew last night, a brief or a summary update. It went very well, and I, on behalf of the RCIPS, thank the people of the Cayman Islands, and that's right across the three islands, including Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, for their almost total cooperation last night. No incidents to report in Cayman Brac, no incidents to report in Little Cayman. Last night we encountered 3 breaches of the curfew order. One was dealt with by way of arrest, and 2 other persons are warned for prosecution. During the course of the night, we had significant additional high-visibility uniform patrols operating throughout the islands. We encountered 42 persons travelling to and from workplace. They all had identification and letters from their respective employers, and they were all essential employees. So we're very, very pleased with the enforcement efforts last night. And again, I think it's down to the cooperation and the understanding by all members of the community of the place we are in at this particular time, and the requirement for containment at this critical time, as highlighted by His Excellency the Governor and by the Premier.
Thank you, Commissioner. In light of the announcement today and the 24 hours curfew, and the Governor touched on it, the panic buying, I'm sure there are going to be people who are going to be racing out to try and get food that will run them over the next 24 hours. Will your police officers be out there to provide support to ensure there's crowd control and there won't be any sort of untoward incidents as people may head out there to try and get in before the curfew?
Okay, thank you, Reshma. So during this particular time, we have significant additional uniform patrols out, and since early this morning we have had significant additional uniform patrols. At 2 p.m. today, significant additional patrols will be employed in the vicinity of banks, supermarkets, petrol stations and general patrolling to assist in the community confidence aspect and assist people going about their business. We are 5 hours away from curfew from 7 p.m. this evening. We all anticipate increased activity as people prepare for what will be a total curfew from 7 p.m. this evening until 5 a.m. on Saturday morning. And I'm asking you to remember the context of the framework, the legal framework in which it operates. It still continues for the 10 consecutive nights, one being last night, finishing on Friday morning, the 3rd of April at 5 a.m. But as part of my function within the legal framework, I have extended the hours of the curfew. And as the Premier has outlined, we commence total curfew from 7 p.m. this evening, which is 5 hours away, and we'll continue right through till 5 a.m. on Saturday morning. The situation will be reviewed constantly. I will be in constant communication with His Excellency the Governor, and we'll assess. And I ask for the continued cooperation of the community to work with us. We will get through this working together, and I'm really very pleased with the way that everything went last night. Everybody that was encountered by the police, I'm advised from my patrol officer on duty, they were all very understanding of being stopped and questioned by the police, and very pleased with the level of enforcement that there was. And as I said, we will continue to enforce everything with a reasonable and fair approach, but in no liberal way. It's not going to be liberal. And as the Premier says, we have to get this total lockdown done, and then on Saturday morning review where we are, and hopefully we're in a much better position then to allow business to be conducted outside of the curfew hours, which will continue until Friday morning, the 3rd of April at 5 a.m.
Thank you, Commissioner. Now, in light of the change of the hours, the penalties are still going to remain the same, or is that going to be subject to review as well?
No, the penalties are prescribed for in law. They remain the same. I can remind there is a power of arrest without warrant by a police constable for somebody who contravenes that. I'm hoping that's the last resort. And as I said, there was one arrest last night. That happened to be a person who turned violent when they were confronted. We dealt with that, and that person will be going to court shortly. The other two persons then understood, accepted the lawful orders, and they will be dealt with at a later stage. They'll be summoned to appear in court for breach of curfew. The penalties, and I have, I think, previously outlined, $3,000 Cayman dollars to a term of imprisonment not exceeding 1 year, or indeed to both in serious cases.
Okay, and for clarification, this curfew means that everybody stay put in their home, correct?
Absolutely, and I'd like to maybe just mention one or two things. So we commend the students for the way they've been behaving themselves down below in Margaritaville and in the Comfort Suites. That's going extremely well. Young people, and being totally responsible from what I can see and the reports I'm getting back. There is small movement, inter-island movement, and just to explain, that is absolutely prohibited. There are reports of people moving around by means of marine. I'm asking people not to be in the water during those hours. That the curfew applies throughout the Cayman Islands, and that includes inter-island movement between here Cayman Brac, here Little Cayman, and conversely moving in the other direction.
Thank you.
My question is for Premier McLaughlin. Is there a list available? Can people go somewhere on a government website and see some of the industries and organizations that you named earlier?
Absolutely. That will be available very shortly. Eric, help me. What's the website?
gov.ky.
Gov.ky. /coronavirus.
And I just want to follow up on one, I guess, profession that you had mentioned yesterday, but not today, which is domestic helpers and nannies. We've already had people kind of reach out to us about that. Can you clarify their status?
If you have a domestic helper who is staying with you, or you want your domestic helper to stay with you for the duration, that's perfectly fine. But there is to be no movement about. And I'll just add, we're still getting inquiries. All businesses except those which are exempted are shut down. They are not to operate. They are not to have staff come in. They are to be shut down for the period of the curfew.
Thank you.
Just two brief questions, because I'm mindful of the time frames. Will there be press briefings every day at this time?
Over the curfew period, yes, we will continue the press briefings. I think people will want them more during that period than perhaps even now. I'm hoping, we're praying there are no significant developments, but we'll at least be able to provide information.
Can we target 2 p.m. every day?
Subject to circumstances, yes.
And the final question for me is, can you reiterate what you're trying to achieve, or what the country is trying to achieve by this drastic measure of a shutdown for 3 days?
We are trying to prevent the community transmission of COVID-19. We're trying to do that by restricting the number of opportunities people have for coming into touch with each other and to possible surfaces on which the virus might be living. In short, that's what we're trying to do. Because there is no longer the opportunity for the virus to be introduced here during the time that the ports are shut down, once we get to the end of about 2 weeks, we will have, in fact, I think much earlier than that, a very good idea where this community stands in terms of this virus among us. The prize at the end is if the strategy succeeds, we will be able to come out the other end, open schools, resume life with some semblance of normalcy. And I say that because we will have to continue to keep the ports shut down as long as the virus is raging around us. But domestic activity, domestic business, construction, banks, financial services industry, to the extent that they still have work and business, given the state of the global economy, will be able to carry on as normal, or as close to normal as possible given the worldwide circumstances. That's where we're trying to get to.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to everyone who's submitting their questions to us via Facebook, via social media. We've got a huge number of questions, so a reminder that many of the answers to those questions can be found at gov.ky/coronavirus. We haven't got the panel behind me for too much longer because they have vital work to be done. So members of the media, if I could ask you to focus your questions now on the issues that we've raised this afternoon. And if I could begin just by asking one question that's come up quite a lot for the Commissioner regarding the curfew. Matters quite specific questions such as the penalties that are in place, are they per vehicle, sir, or are they for the number of individuals that are contained inside the vehicle? So could you have a question, a case where you have 4 people and it's $12,000? That's a question that's blowing up my phone, blowing up social media, so we understand.
Can I afford this breach?
I'll hand over to the Commissioner.
Thank you. So to clarify that, the curfew applies to individuals and not to vehicles, so it applies to each and every person across the Cayman Islands unless exempted as an essential person, and permits will be issued.
Thank you. This question is for Dr. Lee. Just to go back to our previous conversation, a question was asked for an update on the Honduran national Cayman resident. Can you provide us with that update?
I haven't heard anything through the international channel, so I have not reached out to Honduras to find further information, but we have not had any confirmation that case has proved to be a positive COVID case.
Okay, thank you. And I know you said stick within here,
if
but
possible, please.
This question is related to the flu line. I know you've been telling everyone call the flu line with the symptoms and utilize this facility to minimize hospital visits. Can you tell us how effective that has been and how many calls you've had to the flu line?
If I might ask a representative from the Health Services Authority to take that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to actually start by thanking the government and the public for embracing the system that we have in place in regards to reporting if you have flu symptoms and seeking medical attention. So we've been asking persons, if you have flu symptoms, to stay at home and then call the flu hotline, and the advice and direction will be given as to who needs to be seeking medical attention. And that is in keeping with the curfew that we now have in place. So again, if you have symptoms, stay at home and call the flu hotline, and that flu hotline is the same for all of 3 islands. And if you are coming to seek medical attention, you are to call ahead. So that is whether or not you're coming to the flu clinic, a private hospital or a doctor's office, or here or in the sister islands, or after hours for A&E. The flu clinic is open 8:30 to 4 p.m. 7 days a week now. And also, any person who's seeking attention after 4 p.m. would go to the emergency department. But we need to know that you're coming. So if you come to the hospital, we ask you to then sit in your car and contact the flu hotline, and they will be able to channel you into the relevant service so that you do not have to encounter anybody else who is in the hospital, and will be able to have the relevant mask or supplies in order to be able to take care of you. So far, we have seen the evidence that people are complying with those instructions. We started the flu hotline on the 14th of March, and we've had 702 calls so far. These are persons who have had minimal symptoms or maybe just had queries as to whether or not they meet the criteria for testing. And we have seen 170 persons in the flu clinic. So 170 persons, and that has been since the 16th of March. So the numbers have been increasing as far as the calls are concerned to the flu hotline, and we've seen a reduction in the number of persons actually seeking medical attention. And this is good news for us because it indicates that the symptoms are relatively mild. Even though persons are feeling ill, they're relatively mild and they do not need to seek medical attention. And the flu hotline is open 24 hours a day. You can call as many times as you need. There's a caller, and we will staff that according to the demand. And this is staffed by all clinical personnel. So we've had doctors, senior nurses, senior emergency workers that are on the other end of the phone to screen your symptoms and to advise you as to how to take care of yourself.
Any further questions from members of the media? Gentlemen, any further words, Your Excellency?
Could I just make one comment at this point? The Chief Justice has asked me to make clear that Magistrates Court tomorrow, the drug court for Thursday the 26th of March, everyone who is required to attend tomorrow should come on the 9th of April at 2 p.m. For the maintenance cases, anyone who is scheduled for Friday 27th of March should return on Friday the 24th of April at 10 o'clock. Persons who are subject to financial provisions and maintenance orders must make payments as ordered, and the payment details are available on the judicial.ky website or the usual phone numbers. Criminal cases, the criminal traffic cases scheduled for tomorrow, Thursday 26, are to return on Thursday 23rd April at 10 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And one more, if I may. If I may just make one more reminder for everybody, especially that everybody is going to be at home. Please look after the older people in your homes or the people who have got chronic illnesses. Think of them that they've got a glass wall around them and do not approach them. If they're in another room, you could consider having games, doing FaceTime or WhatsApp, but please look after them. It's those people that are most likely to have adverse reactions if they were to get COVID. So look after them and keep your hands clean and try to keep contact down to a minimum.
And you can walk outside of your house, and you can walk your dog, but not on the road.
Thank you for that clarification. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us this afternoon. Just a reminder, the address for those seeking exemption from the curfew was curfewtime@gov.ky. That and all the other vital contact information can be found on gov.ky/coronavirus. Thank you very much.
Persons having difficulty coping and managing stress during these difficult times can call a new confidential mental health helpline, which is operated by the Cayman Islands government in collaboration with private partners. The number is 1-800-534-6463. That's 1-800-534-6463. Hours are Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Additional hours will be added as needed.
Digicel Digicel's Shake to Win is back. Every Saturday, Digicel is giving you a chance to win LTE handsets, cash prizes, data, D-Music subscription, gas vouchers, grocery vouchers, and that's not all. Every week, you get a chance to win a $5,000 regional prize. Don't miss out. Simply download the new My Digicel app, activate a plan if you're not already on one, and shake to win every Saturday. It's that simple. My Digicel. More made simple. Terms and conditions apply.
This is a public service announcement from your Radio Cayman, your community radio station. Here are some coronavirus prevention tips.
Self-isolation is an effective precautionary measure to protect those around you, your family, friends, and colleagues from contracting COVID-19. You or the person you are caring for should remain in your home except for getting medical care. Do not go to work, school, or public areas. You will need to ask for help if you require groceries, other shopping, or medications. Please seek the advice from the Public Health Department.
For the latest updates and information, please visit hsa.ky/public-health/coronavirus or gov.ky/coronavirus.
Vamped Motors encourages everyone to stay home in compliance with our government's directives, which are absolutely critical to protect our islands from the coronavirus. In light of this, Vamped Motors will be closed from Wednesday the 25th of March for 10 days, or until our Cayman Islands government gives us the all-clear to return to work. Please, everyone, be safe and let's get through this together by staying apart.
Preventing dengue is as simple as preventing mosquito bites. Use a mosquito repellent, wear protective clothing, and stay indoors during early dawn and dusk when mosquitoes are most active. Control the places around you where mosquitoes breed. Remove stagnant water in outdoor and household settings. As a weekly habit, persons should change the water in vases, clear the water in saucers under potted plants, and ensure air conditioner drip trays are free of stagnant water. Outdoor objects capable of holding water should be kept empty and preferably disposed of or put into dry storage if not used. These include open bottles and tins, watering cans, buckets, empty paint tins, and old vehicle tires. Do your part to control the spread of dengue. The dengue virus is an infectious disease transmitted through mosquito bites. Symptoms may come on as early as 4 days or as late as 3 weeks following an infection. There is no vaccine or specific medication to treat dengue. Symptoms of dengue include high fever, headache, pain behind the eyes, joint and muscle pain, and rash. If persons have any of these symptoms, they should go to the nearest health center or hospital. It is advised to drink lots of liquids and avoid medication that contains aspirin.
Listen to the general public.
Your thoughts are just a telephone call away. 1-800-534-8255.
What the public is saying.
Let your voice be heard. And now,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. I trust most of you in the listening audience have listened to the most recent press briefing by the Honorable Premier and His Excellency the Governor and the other senior members of government that were imparting additional information relating to current steps being taken in order to ensure that to be, insofar as possible, prevent the spread of coronavirus in the Cayman Islands. So, of course, we would encourage your support in every way possible and your cooperation in every way possible to ensure that that is the case, thinking of yourselves and the wider community in so doing. Just by way of reminder for clarification, it is my understanding, and I'm fairly certain that this is the case, but if in doubt, there is a website reference as well as an email reference I'll provide you with shortly. But effectively, what the Premier has indicated is that there will be a complete lockdown other than for essential workers who have been declared as such and identified as such, starting this evening at 7 p.m. and continuing through Saturday morning at 5 a.m., after which time the current curfew provisions, which are from 7 p.m. until 5 a.m. each day, will then go back into effect for the remaining period, which will take us to the 3rd of April. So that is my understanding. The email address, which you are encouraged to send an email if you have access to email and you wish to inquire further, or you have specific questions that you need clarification of, is curfewtime@gov.ky. Also, some additional important information is that for anyone who, for example, has a person working with them or assisting them through and is not doing so through the Department of Children and Family Services, you can actually contact the government on neoc@gov.ky, or phone the National Emergency Operations Center hotline on 1-800-534-6555 in order to clarify what is required in order to identify the person as an essential worker, because it may well be the case that if it is for example, with respect to caregivers who are employed through independent agencies or independently by the particular person, then you may well need to provide a letter, and the person may need to carry a form of ID in order, if they have to move about between their home, for example, and your home during the lockdown, and so as not to incur any issues with the police who have to police the situation. So with that having been said, we do have a call on the line, so I will go directly to the caller. Good afternoon, caller. You're on Talk Today.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
I have a question. If people are at home and they're putting this curfew in place so sudden, the people don't have no food, what do they supposed to do?
I assume, sir, you're referring to the lockdown. Is that correct? As opposed to
correct.
Oh, okay, sir. So basically, it's a very good question. Insofar as and I'm not being trying to make light of it at all. Quite the contrary. What I'm saying is that my understanding is that, except for exceptional workers, essential workers, that it will be necessary for you to obtain the necessary things that you need to get to carry you through the lockdown period before 7 p.m. this evening. If you are unable to do so and you need assistance, then you should, and you have no other method of obtaining assistance, you should reach out to the National Emergency Operations Center on 1-800-534-6555.
I mean, these sudden changes, that's bam. People, come on, man. It's going to cause a problem.
I understand your sentiments, sir. Of course, as you will understand, I cannot comment on that. But certainly, you have every opportunity or right to make your thoughts known to your representative, for example, if to the extent that you're uncomfortable with that or feel that it is not the appropriate approach. I will say, not that this is any justification one way or the other of anything, but I will say that there are a number of countries who are practicing lockdown at the moment because of the seriousness of the nature of the virus, of course, and I know that we all want to try to ensure that we are all kept as healthy as possible, but I don't know that there is any magic answer to do that.
Like I said, I ain't not gonna stay home style. That's all I gotta say. Have a good day.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for your call, sir. Certainly appreciated that a number of persons will feel that there are that it is rather drastic measures, but the Honourable Premier did explain that he accepts that these are drastic measures, but he feels that it is absolutely necessary for the protection of everyone in the Cayman Islands, and I think that we have to accept. We have to accept what he has said, and in addition to that, of course, as the Commissioner of Police indicated, the these particular provisions have the force of law, both through the regulations that were made as well as through the police law. And so they will be carried out. Of course, it is perhaps not as draconian as it may sound to some, insofar as those persons who are essential workers will be able to move about as necessary when necessary, and that is most fundamental, especially when those essential workers need to get to people who actually need assistance in one way or another. But I would encourage everyone in the listening audience to please do your best to comply and to avoid any issues with the police or falling short of the law, to get the necessary supplies. Remember that the lockdown is only, some might say only is not the appropriate word, but it is until Saturday morning, and so between now and between this evening at 7 p.m. and Saturday morning at 5 a.m. you need to be very cognizant of that. Honorable Dwayne Seymour was mentioning the fact that if you need to go outside and get a breath of fresh air, by all means do so, but stay within your premises and not out on public streets or anything like that, because that will of course make you susceptible to penalties under the law. Also, just by way of reminder, again, if you have questions for the HSA in particular, the number to reach them, 947-3077. If you need to get refills from the HSA pharmacy, you can contact them through the usual numbers, 244-2716, 244-2715, or indeed you can send them a WhatsApp or a text message and seek to get your refill done. I'm sure they'll do their very best in the circumstances if it is the case that your medication will expire during the period of the lockdown, although they did state yesterday that typically it takes 24 hours to fill a prescription given the volume with which they have to operate. So I think that if we all pull together and do our best in the circumstances, seek as much clarity as possible, ask as many questions, then we can move forward. And just also by way of reminder, the relevant website to access for the purposes of obtaining the detailed information relating to the lockdown and the curfew and a number of other issues that concern the steps being taken by the government in relation to the coronavirus would be to visit gov.ky/coronavirus. If you don't have access to your to a computer or to the internet, then you can give them a call. And again, that number is 1-800-534-6555. If you have any, if you'd like to send them an email, you can also do that on curfewtime@gov.ky or essential@gov.ky. We're going to be drawing near to the end of today's show. I'd like to thank everyone for their patience and cooperation. We certainly aren't short of our challenges these days, but we do our best to ensure that the information is imparted as quickly and as accurately as possible. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day, and once again, happy birthday to our Susan.
This is a public service announcement from your Radio Cayman, your community radio station. Here are some coronavirus prevention tips.
Home isolation means staying indoors and completely avoiding contact with other people. You need to do this if you have symptoms of COVID-19. If you are practicing home isolation, you should stay in a well-ventilated room with a window to outside that can be opened separate from other people in your home. Keep the door closed and use a separate bathroom from the rest of the household, if available. If you have to share these facilities, regular sterilization will be required. Consider drawing up a bathroom schedule for washing or bathing and have the isolated person using the facilities last.
For the latest updates and information, please visit hsa.ky/public-health/coronavirus or gov.ky/coronavirus.
Digicel is all about giving customers more convenience, more peace of mind, and more flexibility. Do more with the new My Digicel app. Buy plans, pay your bill, track your credit, track your data, and monitor your accounts. It's easy to use and has everything you need in one place. It's time to simplify your life, so go ahead and see for yourself. Download the new My Digicel app today. More made simple.
Shaken yet standing firm. This is Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.